If you are camping in Baxter State Park and you see trees marked with red paint, please pack your bags and leave before it's too late. Let me preface this by saying that I'm not one who believes in cryptids or supernatural stuff. I want to believe that there's a logical explanation for what happened to me and my friend, but for the life of me, I can't find a rational answer. I've been camping since I was a kid, but now I can't find the courage to go back into the wilderness ever again. I'm a pretty experienced camper. I love traveling to different parks and staying out there for 4 to 5 nights at a time. My friend Aaron and I had planned on staying 5 nights in Baxter State Park in Maine. Aaron is also very experienced and has gone with me on countless previous trips. He knows these particular woods better than I do. So when he picked a spot pretty far off from any trails, I didn't question his decision. We chose a spot near a tree that was marked with red spray paint. We planned to leave the site every day to go hiking, so the paint made it an easy landmark that would help us locate our campsite. The campsite was in a small, open field about 30 yards north of the tree with red paint. The first night was completely fine. We hiked out to a nice fishing spot and then headed back to camp when the sun was setting. I distinctly remember passing the painted tree on the way back. Unfortunately, this was the last normal experience I'd have in that forest. Later that night, I woke up to the sound of what seemed like a tree about to fall. I could hear the cracking of branches followed by loud creaking noises. The odd part was that there was no thud. It's as if the tree never hit the ground. What made it weirder was that the forest still seemed to be rustling. Although now more faint, I could still hear the cracking of branches and lots of commotion. I was still half asleep, so I chalked it up to there just being a large animal making noise. In the morning, we went out on another hike. As we left camp, I glanced around for any recently fallen trees, just to be sure. There was nothing. We continued with our day as usual until deciding to cut it short and head back in order to prepare dinner. On the way back, we couldn't spot the tree with red paint. It was odd, but we still managed to make our way back to camp based on memory. Aaron was more confused by the absence of the tree than I was. He kept going on about how he was certain the path he had us on would have taken us right by the tree. To confirm, he walked back over to the location of the tree, but it was nowhere to be seen. When he told me this, I thought he must have missed it, so I also investigated. Sure enough, the tree wasn't anywhere to be seen. I trust our spatial awareness, and I wholeheartedly believe we were in the exact spot where the tree should have been. I remembered the sounds from the previous night having come from the direction of the tree, so I thought that maybe it was the one that had fallen over. However, after scanning the area, there was no sign of a fallen tree. It's as if the tree had just completely vanished. Although we were confused, we didn't keep looking for much longer and returned to the campsite and went to bed. Later, in the middle of the night, I was once again awoken by the same sounds. It sounded like the forest was moving. The sound of trees breaking and snapping was unnaturally loud. It was much louder than small branches snapping. It was like a whole trunk was being broken in two. I still told myself that it was just a large animal, most likely a bear. I should have investigated it to be sure, but it sounded distant, and I didn't want to risk an encounter with an animal. That morning, we went hiking to another fishing spot nearby. This is when things got really strange. On our hike back, we took the main trail and walked past an older couple who were also out camping. They saw our fishing gear and asked if we caught anything. We started having a pretty casual conversation, but the whole tone shifted when the husband brought up hearing trees fall in the night. It was their first night camping, and I told him that we had been hearing loud noises in the night for multiple days now. I asked him if he was able to find the fallen trees, but he said they couldn't find anything. Then I asked him what direction he heard it from. "It was right over there, near that tree with red paint on it," he said as he pointed off toward the distant tree line. Aaron and I looked at each other with confusion and an uneasy feeling. It's very possible that multiple trees had been marked with paint in these woods. Maybe there was logging scheduled soon. Despite all logical conclusions, both of us were put on edge by the mention of a tree with red paint. All four of us walked over to look for a fallen tree, but I was more interested in finding this tree with red paint. When we got closer, I asked the man where the tree with red paint was. In a confused tone, he said, "It should be right here. That's strange. Maybe I'm mistaken." His wife chimed in, "No, it was definitely here. It was pretty easy to spot because of the bright red." Now things felt really off. What are the chances that two different groups spot a tree with red paint, and then both trees seem to vanish into thin air? We continued on our hike to the fishing spot. On the way, all we could talk about was the tree with red paint. It was such a strange coincidence, and we couldn't figure out a logical explanation. Despite this, we tried to forget about it and focus on fishing and the beautiful scenery. We didn't want these strange events to ruin the vibe of the trip. The day came to an end, and I was once again awoken by loud rustling in the forest. I ignored it and went back to bed. When morning arrived, Aaron and I decided to take a break from hiking and spend the day at camp. While eating lunch, Aaron got up to go take a piss. He walked over to the tree line, which was close by. It was maybe 20 yards away at most. One thing I feel I need to stress was that he had walked in the opposite direction of where we had initially spotted the tree with red paint. I didn't think anything of it and continued eating with my back facing the direction where Aaron was peeing. In a shocked voice, Aaron shouted to me, "I found the tree with red paint. It's over here." Immediately after he said this, the forest began to rumble again. It was the same sounds I had been hearing every night. I could hear loud snaps of branches and a deafening creaking noise, the kind you hear from large trees swaying in heavy winds. I couldn't see Aaron anymore, and I became concerned, so I started calling out his name. My guess was that the tree couldn't have been far from the tree line, so if he walked into the woods to investigate it, he only would have walked a few feet. He was definitely close by, given the fact that I could hear him. However, as I called out his name, I didn't get a response. I began to panic. I thought maybe a bear or something had attacked him in the woods, and that's what caused the loud noises coming from the forest. But I didn't hear any screaming or cries for help. It's like he vanished. I ran over to where he was, and I couldn't find him anywhere. By now, the loud crashing of branches had reduced to a distant rustling of leaves. I continued calling out his name, but there was nothing. It didn't make sense. How could he go from within earshot to completely gone in less than 30 seconds? My heart was racing. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew something was terribly wrong. I began to sprint through the forest, following the sound of distant commotion in the trees. Unfortunately, the dense woods slowed me down, and eventually, the forest returned to silence. I ran back to camp, all while still screaming out for Aaron. I went to investigate the spot where I last heard him. I thought that if something happened, maybe I could track him by tracing his steps. I walked back to the tree line and found his canteen, which he had laid next to him on the ground. I even found the puddle of pee where he had been doing his business. But that's about it. His footprints went only a couple more feet before coming to an abrupt stop. What made it stranger was that I couldn't even find the tree with red paint. It's a very bright red and is easy to spot, so if he spotted it while peeing, it must be extremely close by. I circled the area multiple times, but found nothing. No tree, no Aaron. In all the confusion, my heart was racing, but I tried to stay calm and called 911. I didn't sleep for the next 72 hours. A search and rescue operation started just 30 minutes after I dialed 911. I tried to help as much as I could. I gave a description of Aaron and described where I last saw him and what had occurred just moments before his disappearance. I felt crazy for doing it, but I even brought up the tree and tried to stress that I believed it had something to do with his disappearance. As I expected, the police disregarded the whole tree thing. Under normal circumstances, I would have as well. But something felt deeply wrong in my soul. I don't know what it was, but I know that tree had something to do with Aaron's disappearance. To make matters even worse, the couple we had spoken to was also reported missing. Apparently, police estimate that they disappeared just a few hours before Aaron did. They were only reported missing after they didn't show up to a guided hiking session they had scheduled that day. How fucking strange is that? The couple also vanished without a trace. As far as I know, they were the only other people who had a strange encounter with a tree with red paint. And now, they are missing as well. After multiple nights, I had to get some sleep. I was at the point of exhaustion. I packed mine and Aaron's things and decided to get a motel room. I wanted to be nearby the forest as the search continued. As of writing this, it's been just over a month since he went missing. So far, all the rescue team has found is one of Aaron's shoes. It was discovered about 15 miles from where he had vanished. Nothing has been recovered from the older couple. I'm still at the motel. I can't find it in me to leave Aaron in those woods. I feel so distraught and angry. I honestly just want an answer as to what happened. None of it makes sense. I can't find any logical explanation as to how or why he vanished, but all I know is that there is something dark in that forest. I know that somehow that tree is connected to all of this. It tears me up inside knowing that Aaron may never come back, and I'll have no rational explanation as to why this happened to him. All I can do now is warn others from experiencing the same fate. If you're out in the woods and you find a tree with red paint, please, for the love of God, turn around and go home.